And Trish Bertram and Daryl Bertram, both volunteers for Springfield NORML and victim of our war on drugs. So to start things out, I guess.
Let's have Daryl or Trish, would you mind talking about your story to start things off?
How's everyone doing tonight? I really appreciate you all coming out tonight. It means a lot to me, it means a lot to the cause. Sorry if you know, I want to start out with a little bit of sarcasm.
Sure. You got the mic.
Hopefully I can do that. I'd like to see a show of hands of how many of you are welfare receiving potheads that it's your first time coming to a public library.
Well, I want to see what a library looks like.
That comment is directly related to Kevin Glasser, who showed up at one of our town hall meetings, and he's the vice president of the Missouri Narcotics Association, and that was his comment when he left the meeting, of his feeling of what the crowd was that was there. And it infuriates me greatly, so I just had to get that off my chest.
No problem.
There's one for you on that. Obviously, welfare, food stamps, whatever. I'm disabled. I've got 2 replaced knees, no replaced hip. I take pain medicine for my pain. I could smoke a little pot and not have to take narcotic pain medicine. And they just legalized it medicinal.
Me
Our medicine I'm taking probably caused me to die with damage to my liver before I need to.
We are in the exact same boat, sir. I don't want to touch on that right now. I feel for you. Unfortunately, right now, I would love to take the medicine, but if I take the medicine, I would go to jail for 8 years. So I have to suffer every day. Basically, I'm a former owner of Ozark Mountain Playgrounds. I don't know if any of you in the area remember the company. In the early 2000s, I was diagnosed with degenerative disc disease, spinal stenosis, and spondylolisthesis of the spine. On the diagnosis, I was given pain meds to handle the pain. 2 liver failures later, within 3 years, they figured out I can't take pain meds anymore. And I was in pretty excruciating pain at that point. My back was offset by about 13-14%. But about every week, my sciatic nerve would hit. And it's the kind of pain I'm able to describe it. It's excruciating. It really takes a lot out of you. It zaps you where you really wonder if you want to live anymore. It's that type of pain, whether it's worth the fight. But I have kids and stuff, so I fought on, and I'm glad I'm here today. But basically, I had to find an alternative for pain, and I have family members out west who are epileptic and are medical patients. So I hopped on a plane and went out there, and I consulted with my brother, who's a medical patient, on what exactly I needed for my pain. So I came home with seeds on a plane after 9/11. It's pretty cool. I grew from an Indian for 3 years before I got caught. It was amazing what it did for me. I started the business while on cannabis, grew the business while I was a successful business owner, contributing member of society for several years, had a growing, thriving business because of this plant. Cannabis kept me working. All that came to a stop in 2009 when I got raided by a comet because unfortunately I had taken pictures of my garden. No identifying factors, or I could have been in any state, any country in the world. And my computer got a virus and they brought it into PC outlet in Ozark. I have no problem naming the business because I think no one should use that business because he did not protect my freedom whatsoever. He sent the disc over to County Task Force and they investigated me, I guess, for 4 to 5 months. And I vaporized. And they had found, my vaporizer had broke, so I had rolled some joints and threw out the zigzag empty wrapper in the trash, and the judge gave a warrant for that to come in. And thus they found my garment. If I had it all to do over again, I would do the same thing. That or I would move to another state. Because, well, now a convicted felon, I am disabled because I had a slip and fall accident right before I got busted and I had to have some spinal fusions. I don't want to drag on all night on my story. There's a lot of details in it. If anyone wants to see me afterwards, I'm more than willing to go into details about it.
That's pretty bad that he issued a warrant for that wrapper that
Could have been for
well
tobacco.
have been for tobacco.
Yes, yes.
And that's a blatant invasion of privacy that
There's a
we
lot
have the right
of things I know now that I didn't know then. I also want to throw in during the raid, they really didn't care about the weed. It was a seizure rate. They thought I was dealing. And they were using a lot of profanity, a lot of bad words. Then screaming was the $30,000 in cash we want it right now. We're going to tear your shit apart. If you don't show us where the money is now, we're going to destroy your place. And they basically got extremely upset when they found out I wasn't doing it. And it was a medical guard and I had $300 in the safe, which they didn't take. So thus they, I don't know if any of you remember, called K. Whiteley, Color 10, KSPR. And I ran on the 5, 6, and 10 o'clock news for 3 days in a row. I was the lead off story. That my business was a front for playground equipment that I was actually selling over the counter if anyone could come in and buy marijuana. Not to say I hadn't already installed 650 playgrounds here in Southwest Missouri. I don't know how that happened. In no way, shape, or form was my business a front. I was a hard-working businessman. They got a good crew. I loved my work. Dealt a bad set of cards with my back, and went to find pain relief the way I wanted to. It's not that I wanted to, that's the wrong word. I didn't have a choice. I couldn't take any pain pills because my liver was shut down. And my doctors knew what I was doing for pain relief, and they were cool with it as long as I was vaporizing. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done my surgery. Well, actually, I had 3 surgeries. But I guess I'm going to stop there. I'm going to let my wife, so I'm not here too long on this, and you guys can answer questions, because that's really what's important. I'm going to let my wife touch on from what happened from the bus to our life and how we are now.
Like you said, we got raided. We spent 3 days on the news. On May 20th, I woke up middle class, suburban, white fence. You know, a life that everybody dreams of having. On May 21st, I woke up in a jail cell, basically a second-class citizen. As much as we try to keep our business open, you can't come back from that kind of media coverage. Both of us are now convicted felons. I've owned a successful business. I have a college degree. I can't find full-time work. I can't even begin to explain the difference between how our life has changed. Right, I don't use marijuana. I've never even went into the grow room. However, I've never even had a speeding ticket. However, now it is what it is, but even if you agreed with the drug lord, the laws and the way that our society works now, you can't ever get better. You can't ever reach and get past a drug addiction or a criminal conviction because of the way it's set up.
I can relate. I relate. I'm 39 years old. I was 18. Got caught up in a raid. I've been a felon ever since. And been a second-class citizen ever since. I'm almost 40 now.
Right, and I spent 18 months looking, daily. I can't even count how many times I do a job interview. They would love me. We'd be filling out paperwork. They would either not pay attention, not notice when you fill out the app that you are a felon. We've been doing paperwork and they go, can you pass a background check? No, I can't. Even now I have a full-time job at the moment, but it's through a temp agency that's expected to end in December. So we're already back to scrounging for rent money. It's just, even if I had a drug problem and I don't know that, you can't get past that felony conviction.
How about if Doug and Miranda would sort of give an update on what's going on here locally to fix these problems, and I'll kind of take the statewide angle, and then we'll take Q&A. You want to talk about what's going on? Sure, a little bit. To the extent that you can, I know. There are a lot of things that we can't talk about at all on this.
I'm a little foggy on dates and the exact amount of time that has transpired, but here sometime back, in fact, a lot of you in this room may have been part of that effort where signatures were garnered to basically put a partial decriminalization marijuana measure on the ballot here in Springfield. It took a lot of work. Signatures don't come easy, as you all know. But the threshold was hit. The signatures were certified. Great day for the movement. Except my colleagues on city council, most of them, voted to, well, the reason I'm hesitant, there's a lawsuit right now, so there's some things I can't talk about.
I'm a plaintiff, she's a plaintiff, and he's a
And I'm a
defendant.
defendant.
Only because he's on the council.
But, well, collectively, we passed that ordinance so that a very short time after that, we could repeal it. And as far as what most of us on council thought, problem over. I guess it's okay to say that I'm glad the problem's not over, actually. But that was kind of the shot across the bow. Springfield's been somewhat of a battleground since, and still is. And, any city, any state, anywhere in the United States, one thing that I've learned is that the old drug warrior attitudes aren't just going to evaporate. These people are going to cling on to these types of bad policies to their own demise. They don't care. They think that they're fighting a good moral war, and I'm sorry, but indoctrination within the law enforcement community for decades causes someone to just believe it is okay for me to terrorize my fellow human to keep them from even possessing this plant. I say that, and I'm thinking I'm in freaking bizarro world, and this is insane. I know I'm preaching to the choir, but it is insane. But it's very, it's very nice to see the number of people that are in this room tonight. And this battle is not over. It's going to continue until sanity actually prevails. And the folks on the other side of the issue, hope they come around. I hope they can endorse some reason within their own minds, because otherwise, it's not going to be pretty for them. But I'm editorializing. I'll pass the mic over.
Thank you.
I'll just follow up on what Doug said. Basically, after the council did what they did, preventing our ordinance from going to ballot, even though we collected the signatures, we were able to find some lawyers to take the case because we believe that there was truly a civil rights violation, not only just personally for the marijuana cause, but for the petition process in general. So, that's why we filed the lawsuit, is to hopefully uphold the petition process in Springfield so that other groups don't have to go through what we went through. And then also I'd like to add that an expungement ordinance was heard by the city council on Monday. And that was actually brought up by Craig Hosmer outside of us. He was kind of interested in the issue and at least knows that there is something that has to change, and that people like Trish and Daryl basically get unnecessarily punished for their entire lives because they have it on the record. So he's offering an expungement for minor possession of cannabis for people who don't re-violate within 2 years. So it's always a good time to contact your council members. Not everybody's on board with it, I'm sure, so they need to hear from people to know that that people support that kind of a common sense measure.
And so, yeah, let me just give you a little bit of perspective on what we're doing at the state level to try to, there's a lot we can do at the local level, but if we want to really change the laws, we have to do it at the state level. And obviously, the goal of Show Me Cannabis is to create a legal, regulated market for cannabis, just like they now have in Colorado and Washington. So that's what we're aiming for. And we are in the process, hopefully in the last stages of drafting an initiative that we're going to file with the Secretary of State. Now, we're not committed to pursuing a 2014 campaign yet, but this would at least be for consideration in 2014. And we are definitely going to poll on that initiative. And if the polling looks good, like 60% or so, then we are going to move forward and try to get this on the ballot. Also, the nice thing about it, if you do polling and it shows that it's likely to pass, then people are much more likely to give you money, which is, really that's what, it may be a bad thing, but that is how politics goes around. You have to have money to get things on the ballot and to promote them. But we are very encouraged that, there was a recent poll that just came out from Gallup that showed 58% support for legalization nationwide. And we have good indication, the polls that have been done in Missouri beforehand have showed that Missouri, believe it or not, is ahead of the curve on this. We actually polled better than Oregon last year. We had the same company do it on similar ballot titles, and we polled better than Oregon, of all places. Also, let's see, we polled about just over 50% last year, and with the bump of about 7 to 8% nationwide, we should be right around 60%. And if that's the case, then we have a very good chance of winning, and I hope we can count on you guys' support to get it on the ballot, and also to pass it once the time comes. And with that, I think we're open for questions. And Kelly, how do you want to do the questions?
If you guys have a question, if we could get a line maybe sort of over here at this side of the room, come up, ask a question, and then do a quick follow-up and take your seat. That sounds pretty orderly.
Podium?
Yeah. So if anybody wants to come up, just come up here and get a single file line.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry, but it's not a question. I just want to second what City Council Member Burleson said and what John said. Politics is all about money, and it costs a lot of money to run a political campaign. And who's going to give it if it's not us?
Amen, brother.
Maybe we should make our own
To that end, there also is a donation bucket in the back. At some point we might pass that around, like a pass the hat sort of thing. Oh, Oh, yes, and also we do have you want to talk about fundraising event coming up?
Sure, yeah, Showing Cannabis has a fundraising event coming up. We're doing a trivia fundraiser. There's going to be 10 rounds of trivia with a $150 prize. So if you're good at trivia, you might actually walk away making some money. It's $75 for a table of 6 in advance, or $15 for an individual. Now the prices will go up if you just buy them at the door. But we have some flyers in the back, so that's all I'll say about that.
My question is, in this proposal that you're going to maybe get on the ballot, is it going to be legal to grow your own in the American way, independent, self-sufficient? Or is it going to be, like in Washington, illegal to even grow your own?
We certainly, at least the way it's structured right now, is it would allow for, so we wouldn't put any prohibitions in the amendment itself, because we're having to pursue a constitutional amendment, because we're very confident that if we pursued a statutory change, the legislature would just wipe it off the books pretty much immediately. But so in the Constitution, we would then say that the legislature cannot restrict the ability of someone to grow their own cannabis to less than, I think what we have it at now is 4 plants. We would like to have it, more than that, but that's pretty much what a lot of the people that are interested in funding this have told us. Look, the polling says you're pushing your luck if you go more than that. However, we don't make any distinction between, like in Colorado, I believe it's 6 plants, 3 mature, 3 immature. We don't make any kind of distinction that way. So
Well, you don't have the money to make your own grow room and all that. You want to do it outside in the growing season. That 4 wouldn't be enough to keep you through the whole year till the next growing season.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is it wouldn't necessarily, the legislature would actually have to pass a law, though, saying that, they are going to restrict it to 4. As of, if the amendment was passed, there is no restriction at that point. The legislature would have to pass the restriction. And so you could go fight it at that, down the road. But so it's unlike I-502, which is Washington's, which actually, they prohibited in their law home growing, which I think was a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's the American way, be independent, self-sufficient. And if you think it's an okay plant that shouldn't be illegal as an individual choice or for medicine, then that should be the way to think about it. Not say, well, you're a criminal if you have 5.
Yeah.
But anyway,
We do have to, at a certain point, determine whether someone's a commercial operation or not. And so, I mean, pretty much, even if you're talking about, tomatoes. If you grow enough tomatoes, you can start to be regulated because of the fact that it starts to look like a commercial operation, at least if you're selling or giving a bunch of them away. But if you're so that's the thing, that it would at some point have to be regulated. But yeah, we definitely support home growing.
same kind of deal, like 6 chickens, 7 chickens is too much chicken noise or something.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these things get into the finer details of the regulation, but yeah, I mean, we are certainly not proposing any ban on home growing. The legislature could restrict it up to a certain level, and then we would probably go lobby them to keep it at something higher, say like 8 plants.
Right. Well, my question is, how do you get past in your fundraising the whole stigma or the fear that a picture would get reported and the comment team would come break your door down, kill your children, whatever? Because I've said to my children, how many people are here? I have a disability that is extremely helped by marijuana that I found out in California. But I don't want to be a criminal. But my children won't even go to the trivia thing because they don't want the cops there, the underground, the DEA, whatever to come and follow them around. They've been raised in it, you know, most of
There's a fear established.
a real fear established that they don't want in any way to be associated, even though they, you know, have no problem with it and think the law is wrong.
Guilt by
But-
association.
Yeah. Plus, they know what's going on with the police, and you know, it's like really sad to raise your children to say, well, if there's a cop in front of a convenience store, don't even go in.
Trish, you want to say that?
First thing I want to say, if you use marijuana for medical reasons, you're not a criminal. Even though we're both felons, I don't consider us to be criminals. We weren't hurting anybody. We weren't harming any society. We weren't doing anything wrong. We might have been doing something illegal. We weren't doing anything wrong. So we have to get out of the mindset that just because the government decides to label you, you have to live by that label. Because I refuse to live by that felon label. Second of all, the fear factor, I gathered petitions both for the 2012 run that we did and for the Springfield League run. I heard it all the time. I don't want to sign that because it'll come watch me.
Exactly.
This is America. We fought for independence. We have fought the whole time. We have to stop being afraid and start acting. And that's how it's going to get.
I spoke to some people, but.
I think the NSA's got something to say about that.
Their employer would find out.
That is, yeah, a lot of people express concerns about, you know, about whether if their employer would find out or if they might get, you know, a visit from the SWAT team. And, you know, I understand where those concerns are coming from. This is something that is kind of one of my personal hobby horses because, yeah, that's probably the biggest thing holding us back is that people are afraid of this issue. They're afraid to talk about it. They're afraid to do anything with it because it's not that they don't agree. It's just that, well, they don't want to get in trouble with the law. And basically, with this issue, there has been a perception that just talking about changing the law is somehow admitting that you are a criminal. And, you know, I'll tell you where I'm coming from. You know, I actually don't smoke marijuana. I haven't in quite a while. And, you know, I used to when I was in high school, and I sort of think, well, wow, if I would have gotten busted back then, my life probably would have gotten really screwed up. And it wasn't because of the marijuana, it would have been because of the fact that I got busted. And so, you know, I totally understand that fear. But I will say that I really think that, you know, people have, you know, this is America, and freedom of speech is actually still pretty well preserved, and it's even better preserved if you're out there fighting for it. Trust me, the cops don't want to come after you if you're the kind that might make life hard for them. You know, and I think we've kind of demonstrated that a few times now. Going back to 2012, you know, some of our petitioners were arrested in St. Charles, and we threatened to sue them, and they threw out the case, and they, you know, returned the petitions that they took. In Moberly, the Moberly Area Community College tried to not let us have our meeting there. We told them, no, look, you can't, you're a community college. If you're going to allow public meetings, then you have to allow it no matter what the viewpoint is. And they backed down on that. And then, you know, more recently, the narcotics officer, Kevin Glazer, that you're talking about, that was at the meeting in Cade. And at the meeting in Cade, he was actually, you know, he was quite fine there. He was a little argumentative, a little combative, but it was a fine, rational discussion. It was then when he went home and posted it on Facebook, which he didn't realize his Facebook profile was public, and insulted everybody in a really derogatory, well, insulting is obviously already derogatory, but in a false and derogatory way, that, you know, then he, I think, found out that it may not be wise to insult people in public like that, because I think he got a lot of emails from people that were quite upset. And when you stand up for your rights like that, people that might want to violate those rights start to back away from it. They don't want to take that on.
I think part of that, I was just going to say, people, when talking about like prohibition or whatever, like who are against it, they get so lost in the theory of how wrong it is and stuff, they forget the practical element of all and the consequences that it causes.
I mean, how prohibition actually doesn't work, basically. Is that...
Yeah, I mean, just like that they say they're against it on moral grounds and whatnot, but they don't realize, they forget that there's real people that they're talking about. They just think, oh, they're potheads. It's an idea that they're maybe angry, that they're prohibiting, but they don't realize. And
Another thing they don't realize is that it's really starting, is when I first started in 2012, the majority of people would look at me and go, oh, you're a stupid pothead. And I haven't smoked pot in 18 years.
Yeah.
I mean, and as this movement has grown so quickly the last couple of years, we're really bringing on non-smokers, libertarians, Republicans, Democrats. It's no longer just a one-person view. We're bringing in all kinds. And so for people that at some point, they're going to stop making that assumption because they're going to learn that it's wrong.
I would also say that, this is, as the movie said, it's the war on drugs is not a metaphor. And in any war, you have to dehumanize the enemy in order to, and so that's what that is. They're saying, oh, these people don't count, and so we don't care what happens.
On that note, I kind of have something that's related. I mean, we're petitioning and everything for legalization, and that's great. I don't really understand exactly where you draw the line where our petition isn't good enough and it has to go to the legislature. It's not just the people, it's got to be this group of people that are, paid off by someone else to vote against us, it seems like to me.
Right.
And I think we ought to maybe get a petition that says that when law enforcement goes in and seizes property, bank accounts, everything that somebody owns, and a lot of times maybe for a small possession issue on marijuana or a plant, but they're taking this person's whole life and yanking it right out from under them. And they're not doing it just to a few people, they're doing it all across this country. And we need to get in there with a petition that says, when you make seizures from these people, the money that comes from these seizures cannot go back to the police department. That money has got to go to pay off the national deficit, to take care of homeless people. Education. Get medical for people who can't buy it, Let's not just go out and buy a brand new SWAT vehicle or something, Let's get in there and do what the country really needs. Let's get out of debt. Let's bring jobs back in here. And if people had good jobs, they wouldn't be out dealing dope if they could make enough money to earn a good living.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Before I got involved directly with the cannabis movement, I had always been a supporter of it professionally. I had mainly worked on asset forfeiture, and so I know a lot about how those laws are messed up. And the thing is that the state of Missouri, actually, the money is supposed to, under state law, the money is supposed to go to the revolving education fund. But here's the thing, federal law says that if the local police work with the federal government to create this forfeiture, then they can kick back up to 80% of the funds from the seizure. And that's the police department then gets to basically fund themselves out of these seizures.
So then you basically took your police force who's supposed to be out here protecting us, and you've turned them into a bunch of armed thugs that are hitting you over the head and taking everything out.
It certainly makes it the incentive to go after crimes that create a lot of money as opposed to crimes that might be more important from a public safety standpoint.
Or maybe change the seizure law so where you can't seize more than the value of the drug that you took from the person or something, anything.
What we would probably have to do, and we've talked about, there's Show Me Cannabis wouldn't directly do it, but I've talked to some people about trying to create a ballot initiative to ban what you're talking about. And what you'd have to do basically is say, Missouri law enforcement can't participate in federal equitable sharing policies.
That would be a stepping stone, absolutely.
Yeah, and also there's a story I like to tell about asset forfeiture. There's the video, you can look it up, it's from Tennessee. But there was a newscast where Interstate 40 runs through Tennessee, one of the major thoroughfares from, going from Mexico over to the eastern seaboard, and they had a lot of seizures happening there. And so, the drugs were coming in, going east, and the money is going back towards Mexico, going west. Can anyone guess where the police were stopping all the trucks? Yeah, they were stopping basically no trucks going east, stopping all the trucks going west. And it got so, they're just getting the money from it. And it got to a point where the police departments were actually fighting over turf. They would be like, no, you can't, this is my area to pull trucks over, you can't be here. And I can't remember what news station did it, but it's a station out of Nashville, I think. So if you Google Tennessee Interstate 40 asset forfeiture, you'll find that. It's an interesting case.
Legalized armed criminals is what we're turning our police department into.
They already are.
Yeah, well, I know.
They're not turning, it's what they are, right?
Well, we need to make a petition to change that, and it's gonna be a point where people, somehow we've gotta make it where people on their petition outweighs the legislature, so they can just buy their votes.
Yeah, you pretty much, you'd have to go with a constitutional amendment, because that's the one thing that the legislature can't change in that state. The only way the legislature can
Can you
change it.
explain the difference between a statutory and a constitutional amendment and what those look like for everyone?
Sure.
If we do that, then that is gonna be the edge that we need that will give us legalization, because the police won't be out there going after all these seizures, because they're not gonna get anything out of it. You watch, they'll get real lazy when they're not getting anything out of it. Guarantee it.
I think there is something to that. It's certainly I just say, I don't think the police are, just a gang of thugs, but I think they're responding to incentives. If the policy is out there that allows them to make money off this, they're going to do it. That's human nature. But to the point about statutory versus constitutional changes, so a statutory change, you can change what the statute says in the law, which is, the legislature passes a rule and it goes into the Missouri revised statutes. The Constitution is basically, here are the rules for making those statutes. Congress can, at the federal level, Congress can pass a law, but they have to send it to the states to create a constitutional amendment. With alcohol prohibition, they actually passed an amendment. It had to be repealed in the same fashion. It couldn't be done just by Congress. And so in the state of Missouri, the legislature, there is no way for them to pass an amendment on their own. They can put it on the ballot, but they can't just vote it in. The people of the state have to vote for it. A statute, though, they can change it, they can repeal it, they can do whatever they want to it at any time. And our legislature has proven themselves to be very willing to repeal, in part or in whole, large chunks of initiatives passed that are just statutory changes. And given the current makeup of our legislature, I kind of guarantee that they would do that if we legalized cannabis through that mechanism. So I think it has to be through a constitutional change. Yeah, sure.
Why is there such a big difference?
So the only difference in getting one of these things on the ballot is for a statutory change, it's 5% of the registered voters who voted in the last gubernatorial election in 2/3 of Missouri's congressional district. That is a very technical definition. And then with a constitutional change, it's 8% of that same figure. And so Missouri's kind of weird in that way. Most states, it's just a number of signatures wherever, it doesn't have to be from any particular part of the state. But in Missouri, you have to have 6 of the 8 congressional districts. It used to be 6 of the 9. Now it's even a little more difficult.
Yeah, a couple more questions. If anybody else has a question, then come around here, take a seat, and get in queue.
It's kind of hit on a little bit of one of the questions I had about asset forfeiture. That's called Policing for Profit, that series you're talking about. I can't remember what station it was either. It's a really good series. It was like a 3 or 4 series. The question would be about the forfeiture. Would you have to write something in to just say you're not allowed to work with the federal government on this? And would it be directed or scoped down to marijuana only, or has it got to be a blanket type thing?
I mean, you could do it either way. It would be up to the drafters, but I would recommend it be done across the board because that's the basic premise is that police should not be making money off of the way that they police. And so, now, what was the other part of the question, sir?
Well, it's just, is it going to be scoped down to say you can't work with the feds on the forfeiture of marijuana, or is it blanket, like on any kind of forfeiture?
Yeah, it would make the most sense if it was
Restrict forfeiture.
It would make the most sense if it was across the board for any sort of forfeiture. And, that's not something that we're directly involved with, but, I certainly support changing the forfeiture laws because it is completely
Some stipulations in there as to the areas that the forfeiture money should go to rather than the police. Then the people who are thinking about voting on this or signing the petition, they'll see, well, yeah, it'd be a lot better for them to take that money and do this than put it in their pocket. And when people see that, they'll sign.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. Also, the thing is that with the state level forfeitures, like I said, it's currently illegal for them to put it anywhere besides education. And you wouldn't have to necessarily prohibit them from working with the federal government. You would just have to prohibit them from taking the money that the federal government sends back. They could work with them, they just couldn't take the money.
That's kind of the other issue is then you're still, under federal law, of course, every state's still doing that, but,
Maybe we could change it federally.
That's harder because there's no petition process federally, unfortunately. Yeah.
and
They just
those
run it
court
through like
rulings
they did
that
a
came out
bond.
in forfeiture laws, those are court rulings, weren't they?
I mean, there's all sorts of court rulings on, I'm not as familiar with that.
But I think they came about as court rulings, they started it, and precedent set it's an actual law. My next question was, besides public support, are you seeing any support at the state level, legislature, executive office, anything like that, or even law enforcement, any kind of support?
Yeah, I will, I'll let some other people get on this one, but I will say that I've been down to Jeff City quite a few times over the last session, and actually, our lobbyist now is a St. Louis City police officer and Tea Party activist. So, we do have some support among the law enforcement community and among, conservative Tea Party types, so that's good. And I will definitely say that it's taken a lot more seriously down there, and there are a lot of reps that, they know that it's a good idea to change the policies, and they support, but they're like, oh, look, I agree with you, but my constituents they wouldn't go for it. And so I think there's just been this disjunct between our elected officials and us on this one, because I think, again, because people are afraid to speak out on it, that they've only heard from their constituents that are in favor of prohibition for so long that they just think it'll be political suicide to actually say how I really think and feel. And so, definitely if you haven't talked to your state legislator about this, give them a call, because it doesn't take a whole lot of calls at the low, when you're talking about a state rep, to get his attention.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you guys want to add on to any of that.
I just want to add that when we're out with Springfield NORML, and we do quite a bit of festivals, as much as we can get into. Here locally, when we did the Do Good Festival on the square, it was late September, late October. There was a police sergeant in charge of the group patrolling the whole area, and it was quite a funny encounter. And I really would like one of these two ladies to touch on it, because I actually wasn't there. I got to hear it sort of secondhand, and I want to let you all know what happened.
Yeah, Trish and I were at a booth for Springfield NORML and Show Me Cannabis at this music festival on the square, and one of the police officers comes up to us with his partner, and he starts off by joking. You guys have examples, which is pretty funny. At least he's willing to be jovial about it. So we thought that was a pretty good thing. But then he keeps talking to us about it. And basically, at the end of our conversation, he asked if he could take one of our yellow Show Me Cannabis wristbands. And of course, we're like, yeah, go for it. And he wore the thing around the festival the whole day while he was patrolling. So that was pretty awesome. and then we had another officer come up later and basically just say that he was, supportive of us and that he wanted to stop wasting his time with people who were just using cannabis. So.
They're not all thugs.
No, and that's the thing is, we didn't, when we were collecting signatures for legalization in 2012, I didn't see, it wasn't quite that obvious to me that police officers were supportive. But I think now, since Colorado and Washington have legalized, they're braver about it. You know, they're more willing to talk about it now that it's, you know, not so obviously illegal. So.
And I think, I mean, the cops that we probably deal with on a daily basis, the ones that are stopping you for speeding, and I really think that the majority of them, and this is not something I thought a year ago, but I really think that a majority of them believe in our cause because they see the other side of it. You know, when they realize that they're writing a ticket to a kid having a joint that's going to take away student loans, that's not what they signed up for. They know that's not what they signed up for, and they know what's wrong. So the more that we can treat them with respect and have conversations like me and Miranda did that day with them, the more we can get them to start coming out and in the open. And I think in Colorado, that was a very important part of the passage of their bill, was having the police on their side.
Yeah, I have a personal testimony and then also give you a little bit of feedback. My wife, for the last 10 years, has been on OxyContin and sometimes Percocet. They sort of alternate, maybe a month or so on OxyContin and then Percocet the next month. I mean, it's very screwed up, really. But we have reason to believe that the use of medical marijuana works a heck of a lot better for her than that OxyContin. But the catch is this: she has to take a pee test every month to check for cannabinoids. If a cannabinoid shows up in her system, according to our understanding, her doctor will pull her OxyContin pain pill.
Not only that, you gotta stop treating her.
Stop treating her, and maybe to be blacklisted where she can't go to another doctor. And it's just absolutely foolish to me that, number one, it makes me think that the drug companies are involved.
They are.
Okay? But besides that, you know, I just see her going downhill every month. You know, when we first got married, you know, she would maybe sleep maybe 10 hours a day. Now it's up to about 20 hours a day on the couch, and I just see her, you know, going downhill so fast, and that there's a you know, solution for the problem, but due to legal things, you know, there's not a damn thing we can do, because she has such a fear of the pain that she has that if they take that OxyContin away, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, she died. I don't want to get into details. Besides that, okay, now back to the other thing. Believe me, I'm not here for political reasons. I have been for medical marijuana and legalization of marijuana for a long, long time. And what I have found going around getting signatures from people on a petition, is that you tell them, you know, I'm for medical marijuana, I'm for legalization of marijuana, and they don't bat an eye. They're concerned about Obamacare. They're concerned about the government shutdown. They're concerned about whether they're going to have a job tomorrow. What I'm trying to say is there's so many larger issues involved in our country today that I really think that you all have a really good chance, getting past anything you throw out on marijuana, simply because there's so many larger problems facing our nation besides smoking of plants. And then my next concern is if the city council or Springfield passes this legislation concerning, what is it, less than 2.5 ounces?
35 grand.
So about an ounce and a quarter.
Okay. Even if it does pass, what about the state laws and the federal laws? So if y'all can answer that, I'll get off this podium.
All right, number one, it is 35 grams or less, and it's someone that has first-time offender. I'm not really super proud of this legislation. It is the tiniest step in the right direction, so I'm certainly not going to oppose it. But does this fix anything substantially? No, it doesn't. It might help some very isolated people in very isolated situations. One thing that it does do, I'm not sure I want to talk about this. One thing that if this passes and we don't get challenged on it, is that it does demonstrate that as a charter city in the state of Missouri, like the Missouri Constitution says that we have authority to make laws. We could legalize marijuana in Springfield, Missouri. But I say that, not a lawyer in town is going to agree with me. Even though it says that in the Missouri Constitution. But this small measure that Mr. Hosmer has brought forward helps to illustrate that little debate. And bless his heart, the guys on the right side of the issue as far as what type of authority that a city has, especially a charter city, and that we do have the powers that are granted to the General Assembly in Jeff City, except in a smaller geographical area. So I appreciate it being brought forward for that, but as far as the value of this proposed ordinance helping people, only slightly. I mean, I won't oppose it, but...
And just to be clear, you're speaking specifically about the expungement.
And I am speaking about the marijuana expungement ordinance.
And I just wanted to say, we really ought to thank our city council for doing the pass of repeal, because it moved marijuana from a taboo subject in the city of Springfield, where people really didn't like to talk to it, to something everybody was talking about the next day. I mean, they did that by doing the pass and repeal. So while we are very, very angry with them, we opened like 1 ounce of, thank you.
1 ounce?
I just want to speak back to your question a little bit about, how do our city laws line up and measure up with state and federal laws. So if this expungement ordinance passes, it would only apply to people who were tried in a municipal court, in a city court. So people who are pulled over by a state trooper, on the highway in Green County, it wouldn't apply. Oh, really? It would apply.
The county does subservient jurisdiction.
Oh, okay. Well, clarified. That's good. But for our decriminalization ordinance, in that case, a county officer still could have sent it to the state, right?
Let me address that real quick. This is a catch that y'all need to be aware of. If this ordinance, the proposed ordinance passes as far as expungement, that would only apply if a Springfield officer arrested you and you were brought up on charges in municipal court. If a Greene County deputy is involved, the state of Missouri is involved. It is a different critter.
Oh, that's what I was, I might not have said it well, but yeah, that's basically how it lines up. So county officers are basically working for the state. So at that point, they only enforce state laws. They don't enforce, as far as I know, they don't even have the power to enforce their city laws. So any ordinance that we make in the city only applies to charges processed through the city and arrests made by Springfield officers.
Just follow up on that. I mean, yeah, there's a limited amount you can do at the local level. I wish there was more because obviously it's a little bit easier to work at the local level, but that's the reason the law has to change statewide. Now, obviously, even if we change the law statewide, it's still federally illegal. But the federal government appears to be kind of trying to back away from the issue, I think, at this point, because I think they see electoral reality staring them in the face. In Colorado, Barack Obama got fewer votes than marijuana legalization did, and that's a swing state. Now, if you're running for president, you have to take that into consideration. You are not going to go in and violate the sovereign law of a state where you need to win. And so that they know that the polls are only going, this is not probably going back the way it came. It's the polls are just moving in one direction. I think the feds they've already said, look, if you have a well-regulated system, we're going to let the states kind of do what they want on this. We'll see how that actually plays out and if they really do respect that. But I think that it's probably the feds are going to start backing away from prohibition. Maybe not with a very clear and, like Congress passes a law kind of thing, but the policy is just going to change on the ground because they have to admit that they can't enforce the law without state involvement. So,
a couple of things. Mr. Joe was saying a while ago about being worried about the doctors. I know that all too well. I've been fired by one doctor. Pronounced dead. Due to extensive use of high doses of pain medication. I went to my doctor and I'm like, this is my chronic pain doctor. I have multiple spinal injuries. I go to my chronic pain doctor and I go, what would be the chances of getting a marijuana card if it gets passed in Missouri? My doctor looks at me straight face and he goes, seriously? You put me on no rest of your life? Yeah, and it was within a year later, I flatlined in the hospital from all this medication. It's a bad deal. It's something we don't need to be compromising for our rights. It's our right to manage our body, our health, how we see fit, how our doctor sees fit, not our government, not some idiot miles and miles away trying to tell you what to do. It's up to everybody individually. If you know your body, stand up for your rights. Marijuana is from God. It saved my life. I use every day to control my pain. I haven't had any pain medication in over 2 years. Everybody says, you gotta stand up and speak for what you believe in. Take a chance, speak up, because if you don't, nobody else is. We're just going to continue to be pushed down, trampled, bullied. Enough's enough.
I just want to say that we probably have about 15 minutes left. We should probably start wrapping everything up at 8:30. So if you have some questions, get in line and we'll get it answered.
Bill, do you want to comment on that at all? I'll just say that, I think it's a lot of people do, need opioids for pain management, but it's ridiculous that the alternative of cannabis is not even, something that's legally possible. Because opioids have there's a strong possibility of overdose. There's an obvious strong possibility of addiction if use is continued for long periods of time, and so cannabis is pretty obviously safer in the long term than that. And so I see it's just absolutely ludicrous to me that people aren't allowed to pursue that legally.
cannabis never caused liver damage that I know of.
Exactly.
Just wanted to ask the councilman a question. You were saying earlier that Springfield, basically, if we decriminalize, it, we step in the right direction, and we would possibly be able to use that to legalize in Springfield, because basically Springfield is overreaching. I understand that correctly?
Let me try to clarify. Springfield and I believe 12 other cities in the state are what we call charter cities. That's kind of a specially constitutionally authorized city. In other words, we would have some extra authority with the ordinances that we could pass compared to Willard, or a city that is a non-charter city. Now, as far as if this expungement ordinance passes, well, it's curious. We're talking about legislative priorities too, and I don't want to muddy the picture too much. But one of the things that we're going to ask our state legislators to clarify is if the authority to expunge, to make sure that they will clarify that at the state level. That's a clear authority that we have. Which kind of cracks me up. I mean, I've kind of been beating this drum for years, and it took another new councilman to come on board and suggest this for it to happen. But if this expungement ordinance passes, it's not that necessarily is the true test that, yeah, we have this charter authority, but it is definitely, a mark on that side of the legend. As far as certainty in politics, there isn't any. But that gives you a greater chance of hopefully getting something done.
Well, what I'm actually wondering about is if the expungement ordinance passed and we have the same authority, like you said, as Jeff City, and if Springfield turned around and then legalized marijuana in the city of Springfield, would that legalize for an entire region around Springfield or simply for the city limits itself?
It would be strictly for the city limits itself. The charter city thing that I'm referring to is just Springfield.
So that's not
within the city limits. Now, what it will do is, obviously cause people in other communities to start talking and they realize, hey, Springfield did this. A lot of times we're a regional center, so sometimes what happens in Springfield does get duplicated in the outlying cities, so there's always that.
And a person was to get stopped by the county.
See, like I voted for this guy.
Yeah.
So even within the city, the county
He has title control.
not go by ordinance.
Correct. Columbia, since 2004, has had the expungement.
The decrim.
Yeah. They had it.
It's for
Myers in possession. So there is some traffic out there. I do know that counterfeiting is expungible in Missouri. And I do know that your first DUI is expungible in the state of Missouri. So, but not your joint.
So I can drink fake money,
Yes.
but I can't have a flat.
Federally, you won't be expunged, but at the state level, you will.
You can. It's not automatic.
It's not instant, but it has, the option is there. It makes absolutely no sense. But like Bill says, it takes money. And I'm gonna touch on that for a minute. You guys, I'm on Social Security disability. I'm putting in what I can tonight. We're gonna pass this around. The only way this is gonna happen is by money, guys. It's just unfortunate, but that's just the way it's gonna happen. And if anyone has the ability to become a reoccurring donor, please see John here. We have a method to set that up, because if we can raise enough money, we're gonna go for signatures in 2014.
When elections come around, city council members need money too. We're gonna just pass it around to everybody and give it a shot.
I appreciate it. Next.
Alrighty. Hello, my name's Timothy. I just wanted to offer a few more medical accounts of marijuana because people like said, because it's Schedule 1 is not allowed to have research done on it because it just states there's no medical benefits and whatnot. And I feel like there's research done on it daily,
Well, what is actually happening too, there is, in the states where it is medically legal, universities are doing studies.
Well, I actually meant just like by everyday users. Like I would say, like my dad is a great example, which I really wish he could be here tonight. He would really love to be here because he had his sciatic nerve pinched, and it's caused him severe chronic pain ever since, constantly, morning, noon, and night. And he's on oxycodone and morphine and amphetamines, all the strongest stuff he can possibly get, and they cause all kinds of horrible, horrendous dysfunctions in his body, and they don't work really. I mean, they stop the pain, but they have a whole slew of horrible side effects. And marijuana helps him so dramatically. Like it stops all of his pain. It's seamless. He gets high. That's kind of fun. That's really the only side effect. If you didn't like getting high, then that would be your negative side effect to it. But there's my dad also, which is a great example of why medical marijuana is a great thing. And also, I feel like myself is a good example because I always did really poorly in school, starting. And in high school, it occurred to me that marijuana was a thing that went around, and I thought about trying it, and I eventually did. And the miraculous thing is that my grade went through the roof. Like, it's true, I swear.
Your mileage may vary.
It did, exactly. Focused very much.
Carl Sagan
Sorry.
was a genius, and he was a very much a big cannabis.
I'm just saying that it affects different people differently, and some people mental focus goes way through the roof. Some people not as much.
Who'd you say was a genius?
Carl Sagan.
Oh yeah, oh absolutely. He's a great genius. And I've always believed myself in undiagnosed ADD or ADHD, one or the other, I don't know. And it's just always helped me in vast many ways. And I just wanted to offer my medical accounts so that people can understand that it is a medically beneficial thing. It doesn't have to be scientifically proven to have medical benefits. It has medical benefits for millions of users daily.
For thousands of years, and I don't want to be preaching to the choir, but I don't know how many of you in here actually do know that the federal government does hold a patent for medical marijuana. They do say that it has medical benefits, but then on the other hand, they have the FDA with it as a Schedule 1 drug. So they're very hypocritical. I was very hopeful last spring. There was a major lawsuit going on with it, and it got thrown out, which was very frustrating. But I really don't think that issue on that is over with. I think something's going to get continued on it, is what I hope. But what I like about Show Me Cannabis is we're skipping that medical issue, and just if you're 21 and over, you should be able to decide what you want to put in your body.
And if you're younger than 21,
If you're younger than 21, you'll have to get medical approval in order to get your cannabis. So that option is out there in the bill. John touched on that a little bit. It isn't, our Show Me Cannabis campaign isn't just strictly for 21 and over. There is a medical issue in there for those that are under like Factor Vet syndrome. I don't know if anyone saw the CNN special where a 6-year-old boy was having 300 seizures and now she's just having 2 a week.
Actually,
so we can help those children.
What was the last thing I wanted to say? I had it a minute ago. I know, I think how classically ironic it always seems.
Like your medicine wore off.
And the same thing happened to me when I was speaking at Pimpstalk in Portland one time, and I don't even use cannabis, but everyone,
Yeah,
everyone uses Portland.
It's gonna laugh. It's bigger than just for medical use. It's the fact that it's a plant you can't criminalize nature. It's a natural thing. But the government isn't told that this one plant is the bringer of all evil, and we can't have it. Like, it doesn't make sense. It's anytime you try to criminalize nature, you're going to fail no matter what. Nature will whisper.
And I would say the most basic point of all is that prohibition just hasn't worked. Really. It's not like it's ever stopped anyone from. Representative Chris Kelly, he said he intends to introduce a legalization measure this year. I believe actually the phrase he used was, "I will introduce anything you guys want," which we're very excited about that. But anyhow, he had said at one of our meetings that he was a judge in Columbia for a number of years, and he said, I convicted a lot of people for possession of marijuana, distribution of marijuana, and I don't think I stopped a single person from smoking a single joint in all my years as a judge. And I think that's probably true. And, I would think if you're a member of law enforcement, you have to get tired of doing something that doesn't do any good ever.
Yeah. I had one more thing I was going to say, but I'm going to pass it because I forgot all that.
I think we might be just about out of time.
Short comments from them, but before everybody goes, I want to have everybody thank the panel, John, Miranda, definitely Doug for his years of championing this inside of Springfield. Give him a big round of applause. Kristen Daryl Burke. And go back there and make sure you check out the merchandise they have. Every bit of that goes right back to the cause. There's an email list, put your contact information on, and if you're into the text thing, go ahead and text SMC to 420-420 and you get non-invasive information about the statewide organization and what's going on in your area. So it's catered specifically to region too, isn't it?
Yeah, mainly, I try not to send it out too often. Send it out. I don't have time to spam you. We send it out trying to mostly focus on regional events. Once we have a petition out there, we'll be able to say, hey, the petition is, you can go sign it here at this time, or that sort of thing. So.
Thank you for coming out. We have a couple more comments from these gentlemen here.
Real quick, just so you all know, we have to be out of the library totally by 9 o'clock. But some of us here on the panel, you want to go? Okay.
Well, I guess we can.
Me and Trish, if anyone wanted to talk to us further, we're going to go to the front of house downtown, which is formerly the Highlight, and we're going to hang out there for a little bit. If anyone wants to get to know us, talk to us, do some more networking. I don't know if John can or not, but we could probably handle it for him if anyone wants to come and talk more. And I actually have some, I don't drink, but I have some coupons for some free drinks. If anyone wants to come out and chat with us more and get some more information, me and Trish are definitely going to make ourselves available.
I'll be there.
Okay. I have only smoked for over a year, but it started as just me wanting to do it, just because I didn't want to do it because I'm cool. Sorry I'm rambling, but then I started thinking about the medical benefits and stuff. My mom is bipolar. She tends to freak out about a lot of things. She's always stressed all the time. And when she smokes with me, she's not that anymore. She gets to actually do something. She actually gets to not have to worry about things as often. And I go to school, and it's just sad to see how blind people are and how people just look at people that smoke like they're either dope heads or criminals, whatever it is, that they're not actually people. That's what I wanted to say.
Hey, if I can make a real quick point. You're not a dope head. You're not that's part of my French, but you're not a dumbass. You've seen the light. You've seen the truth. Other people can too. So don't give up on other people. What you're doing, especially what sounds like what you've done to your mom, is tremendous.
I've been getting people, I've been actually encouraging people to understand how it really is helpful, to society.
Well, and I'm going to tell you right now, thank you very much for your efforts.
Like your comment about the ADHD, I was diagnosed with ADHD at a very young age, around 12, 11, and I had to go see a psychiatrist. I was super uncomfortable with it. I had no idea what they were going to do. Started taking the prescription amphetamines, the ADHD suppressants, and I started to change and become someone I wasn't really comfortable with. I couldn't do anything about it. I wanted to get off the medication. That, parents are like, no, you got to take it. It's for your own good. You have to do it. It took several years, 2 or 3 years, maybe 4, to finally convince that I didn't want it anymore. And it was just making me feel awful. Yeah, it was just crazy. And while I was trying to, get off this stuff, it kind of felt like sometimes I would feel like I needed it, and I hated that feeling. It was an addiction feeling. And
Never felt that?
no, my great buddy Trevor showed me this alternative, and it hasn't given me that uncomfortable, terrible feeling of, if I don't get it tomorrow, or if I don't, I've never had that feeling like this. And it doesn't make me feel scratchy or uncomfortable. It just, the ADHD medication was just terrible. And I'm glad to see stuff like this popping up now. It's, back then I would have been afraid if someone were to hear me even say marijuana or pot or whatever. I would have never said it or even thought about it. People just put it down so much. It was just something nobody talked about. And that's what I want to say.
Well, dude, you live in a particular part of the country. Go to Colorado or go to Portland, Maine, and you're mainstream, man.
It's very, stay here and spread the good word.
Yeah.
We're right on the coattails, man. But I just wanted to say that, drug companies, and it's just, I feel like it's borderline evil, what they do to kids who.
You're right, you touched on that, drug companies. It's all about money. I'm pretty sure, I remember reading some history on it. The whole thing got started because of DuPont. DuPont family, they wanted to make money selling their synthetic ropes and sales and synthetic cannabis. Well, they've got weed outlawed and then hemp's out of the picture and they make all the money.
That is
So the whole
definitely.
thing was about money.
That is I think that is probably true. That's what most people seem to think about when they look at history. But that could open up a conversation that unfortunately we do not have time for tonight. But thank you guys for coming, and we're going to do big steps forward on this issue in the near future in Missouri. So thank you guys for being a part of it.